3, 2, 1, launch!
Okay, so let's get started. When you first start building this little rocket, you're really trying to get to a rocket that's about this size right here, and it's it's small-ish, but it's really sturdy. It's hard to tell from the camera, but it's nice and stiff, and it's got a really nice point on it. And what makes this fly really, really well is a couple things. The fins in the back keep it so that it doesn't flip, and the little cone at the top keeps it from being slowed down too much in the air. So this is kind of the slicing through the air part of the rocket, and the fins are keeping the rocket from doing this when you shoot it off. So that's what we need to make.
Okay, so after you cut that out, then what you're going to want to do is to take the straw out of its wrapper, and your job is to try and wrap this paper as tightly as possible around the straw without bending the straw. So, if you squish a straw, you can kind of bend it, and you don't really want to do that because you want to keep a nice circle with your paper when you roll it up. So basically the way that I do this is that I just kind of get the edge and then just try to roll it up over the edge of that and keep it nice and tight until I can get it just over the edge there. Now at this point, this is another kind of important thing, is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to roll this nice and straight along here. Sometimes what happens is we roll it at an angle, either left or right, and we don't really want to do that. We want to keep it as straight as possible. So I'm just going to look, and I'm going to see which way, because it usually will go one way or the other. And if it starts to go one way, well then just kind of push it back until it starts to go the other way. You can kind of just push on the straw a little bit, and it will start to go back the other way. And you do it slowly, do it nice and slowly until you've got the whole thing kind of rolled up. Now at this point, now what I want to do is I need to get that taped. So I'm going to get my tape out. I should have cut myself a couple pieces of tape before I did this, but I'm just going to tape that on there. I'm really just trying to get it so that it's not going to unravel on me. And then my straw, see how my straw just kind of is loose in there? Now I can take that out. Now my job is to tape it a little bit more so that it's nice and tight. Okay, so I'm going to get a couple pieces of tape. Any tape will do. I guess duct tape, if you should try it. These are so easy to build. You could build a whole bunch of them, but you could try duct tape, but duct tape seems like it'd be a little bit too heavy for me. So I like this Scotch tape, and masking tape I think would be fine too. The blue stuff or the yellow stuff, either will work. Okay, and then the other thing that I need to make mention of here is that you really need to try and plug your hot glue gun in pretty early so that it's nice and ready to go. But if you look at this, this is pretty sturdy and stiff. And what I can do is I can actually stick my straw back in there because the straw is has started out in there, and so it should be able to go right back in and slide back and forth. If you have it a little bit tight, your rocket will go a little bit further. So it kind of depends on how your rocket is flying. If it's not flying super far, it could be because you didn't roll up your paper tight enough. It could also mean that it's too tight. And I'll explain that in just a minute, but you kind of want it just a little bit loose in there. So take that back out. So what we're going to build next are we're going to build that cone. So what we're going to do next is we're going to build the cone. So I'm going to take this a circle, and what we're trying to do with the circle is we want to cut first the circle out, and then after we cut the circle out, we're going to cut out the piece of pie. And we actually don't want the pie. We want the rest of the circle. We want this little piece. What this is going to be is the cone on top of our rocket. We want that rocket to be as aerodynamic as possible, and this is the cone is what's going to do it. So let's cut that thing out. See, I'm taking my time. Oh, I don't need to go fast here. I just need to get right on that line. This is also not super important that it's on the line exactly, but the better you cut, the better your lines will look on your rocket. So, then I need to take that pie out of there. So I'm going to cut right up into the point. I don't want to go any further than just that point. That's it. You see that? I haven't gone any further than the point. If I go past that point, it's going to be a little bit harder to wind up. Okay. Then I cut the other piece out, and there we go. So that's actually the piece that we want. Now, what we want to do with this is actually have a piece of tape ready, and the piece of tape is going to help us to close the cone when we get the cone ready to go. So if you close the pie up, you can see that you've created a cone. It's a really low, shallow cone. But still a cone, and we want this to be a tighter cone. So if we just were to tape it just like that, it'd be too flat. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to slip the paper past itself and push, and kind of pull this side. If you notice, I'm pulling this side right here over and over, and the tighter I kind of pull it, the more I've got, the tighter I have on my cone. So then take the tape and tape that on there so that it stays. It doesn't have to be a pretty job. You're just really trying to get the cone so that it's not unraveling. Then, if you notice here, I've got a piece of tape that's sticking out, and I want that tape to come off because that will just get in the way. So I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off that tape. Okay. Sticky tape, and again, this is really just kind of depends on how pretty you want your rocket to be, and prettiness matters. We all know this. So then you can see here we want to get that cone right on the top. And so what I'm going to do is the first time I'm going to use my hot glue gun. Remember that the hot glue gun tip can be fairly hot, so just be careful not to touch it on your skin. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is just put a tiny bead of hot glue right at the tip, like that. And then I'm going to stick my cone on like that. Okay. Doesn't that look good? It looks really, really good. And I can turn my, this would actually be called the fuselage right here. That's actually where all the fuel goes in our rocket. Our fuel is going to be air for this rocket, but if you were to have a gas-powered or a solid rocket fuel in there, that's where it would go. So I'm going to just twist this and kind of turn the fuselage so I can see how good I did of a job to make that cone be right in the middle. You want that tip of that cone to be right in the middle of your fuselage, and as center to that as possible would be good. Okay, so next we need to do the fins, and so that's this little piece of paper that you got, and it looks like one triangle, or maybe two, or one triangle split down the middle, but you're actually going to use these three. You're going to use this one, and this one. Okay, so you're just going to cut one out. There's one fin right there. It's just kind of a long triangle. And then I'm going to cut this one. So there's two. And then cut out the last fin. And there's three. So I've got three fins. So the way that I do this is that I actually take my pencil and I go to the bottom of my rocket, and I want to go in three different places. So I make a mark there, and I make a mark there, and I make a mark there. Okay? It just doesn't super really matter where you put your marks, but if you kind of want your three fins to be on three different sides of the rocket, then you try to spread them out as much as possible. It really doesn't matter. It will probably fly really well no matter what. So then I take where my mark was, and I just take a bead of hot glue and just kind of go up pretty high. Then I take one of my fins, and I actually want the flat bottom, the shortest side of my triangle is going to be on the bottom of my rocket. So that's what I want to kind of put on the bottom. And if you put it another way, it'll probably still fly. But the probably best way to do it is to get that shortest side of your triangle right at the bottom of your rocket. Okay, so I'm going to get another mark. I'm going to make another line all the way up. Put this fin right there. And this hot glue, dries pretty, or cools pretty fast. So I'm not putting too much hot glue. You can tell here. If you put too much hot glue, then it just cools. It takes a long time to cool. So kind of just the right amount, enough to get your fins kind of stuck in there. Really, all you're trying to do is just keep your rocket from tumbling in the air. This will just make it go straight. Then I'm gonna blow on a little bit. Then, if you've got them right along the bottom, your rocket should kind of stand up. Not super important, but sometimes it's kind of nice to get it. Now, if you have a whole bunch of rockets, then it's kind of cool. You can paint your rocket any way you want. You can write your name on here. You can write NASA on there, and that's kind of fun. So the next thing we need to build is this right here. So I'm going to put my rockets aside. And the next thing we need to build is the launcher. And the launcher goes like this. It is just the cap of your bottle, and it's screwed on to your bottle. And then when you squeeze like that, all the air shoots out of this, and it will fire up your straw, and it will launch your rocket right off of there. So if I put this on here like this, it's sitting there, and if I shoot this like this, in fact, I'm just going to show you. I'll test it. You'll watch it shoot out of the screen. Okay, And what's going on there, here's my other one, but what's going on there is you're actually creating a lot of pressure inside of your rocket tube. And the pressure is basically air that you're pushing into here. And the air is actually having a hard time knowing where to go. And when air doesn't know where to go, it starts to push on the sides. It even tries to find a way out. And so it's pushing on all sides of the container. In this case, it's the rocket, and trying to figure out how it's going to escape. Now, if you don't have a place to escape, then you're just going to have big pressure built up in here, and it'll stay that way until it escapes. In this case, what's happening is it's also pushing on the top. The air is, that pressure built up is pushing on the top too. And because it's pushing on the top, your rocket will start to slide off of the tube. And then eventually, if it builds up lots of pressure and you're putting lots of air into this from your bottle, then it will push out of the back so quickly that your rocket will start to fly. It'll fly really far and really fast. You guys saw already how fast that can come out of there. So we need to build that part of it. So I'm going to set my rocket aside right here. I'm going to unscrew this. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to take this, your cap. I already drilled a hole in there for you. And the way that I think is best is if you put it in here like this, but you don't, and you want to glue it in there with the hot glue, but you don't want to glue this straight, because if you glue it straight, well, the way I like to do it is I like to set it on the ground, my rocket on the ground, and if I glue it in there straight like that, and then I hit the bottle, then my rocket is just going to scoot right along the ground. I want it to fly in the air, so I actually want my straw to be kind of at an angle like this, not straight like this, but I want to glue it at an angle. So you kind of have to put some glue on there and then hold your straw in place until it cools. That glue can cool down. So I put it on the outside. I also put a little bit on the inside. Ooh, here's one other thing I was thinking too, is that if you can notice here, my straw is not sticking in here very far. If I put it in here really far, it's going to be hard to get my bottle in there. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure that straw right there is not down very far into the bottle cap. Enough that it's going to stick, but not too far. So I'm going to glue on the inside. I'm not actually getting inside the straw. I don't want to do that. I want to just go on the outside of the straw where it's touching the cap, and then make sure that it's all along the top up there as well. And then I just make sure that I've got a really good angle, and then I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to hold it. I have to be very patient, and I'm going to hold it for a minute. And if I can hold it a minute, then it'll probably be dry enough. You know when it's dry because your hot glue starts to turn white a little bit, or a little bit cloudy. Some people like to call it cloudy. And so, okay, this is looking pretty good. It's still a little bit tacky there, but I can tell that it's totally cooled down. And I can see now that if I push it, it's not gonna move. So that's exactly how I want it. Because now, when I screw in the bottle like this, and I kind of want to get that a nice tight seal. I want to make sure that cap can get all the way on there. Once I slide it into that, now I've got a pretty good launcher, and you can see that angle is going to launch that rocket up. It's not going to scoot along the ground. It's going to shoot it up, and that's going to allow it to go pretty far as well. We're going to have a little countdown, and then we're going to stomp on this thing, and hopefully you can see it flying out there. I'm going to stomp on it and try not to block the video. Ready? 3, 2, 1, launch! Yeah, that was so cool. Did you see how far that went? Okay, wasn't that cool? The cool thing about this is that if you launch one of your rockets off and it lands in a puddle, you can just make a new one. It's just paper and hot glue. And so it's really fun to make different styles. It'd be very interesting to try to test out different styles and to see how long each of them goes. Try to mark them out, and whichever rocket goes the furthest is really fun too. There's also another thing that you can do. If you take this straw off of the top, just have another straw sitting around, you can actually put the rocket on here and then you can just blow it. That's another thing to do. Instead of stomping on the bottle, you can actually just take it off and blow it. Certainly not going to go very far, but you might be able to get it to go pretty far. Some people have been able to make them nice and tight and in a really, really light rocket, so you're not rolling up very much paper. And then you blow it, and when you blow it, nice and tight, light rocket, you can blow that really, really far. And so that's kind of fun too. So anyway, really fun project, and we'll see you guys next time.